Tony Siragusa joins us on Sports Byline. Of course, played defensive tackle for 12 seasons in the National Football League, starting out with Indianapolis, and then picked up a Super Bowl championship ring with the Baltimore Ravens. And I want you to check out his book. It is a very funny, insightful read. It's called Goose, The Outrageous Life and Times of a Football Guy. And you know what? When I think about all the players I've known around the National Football League, I don't know of anybody that represents kind of the image of New Jersey like you do.
I don't know if that's good or bad right now with some of these shows that are on TV, but I try to represent New Jersey as best I can.
Take me back to Kenilworth, New Jersey. Tell me what that town was like.
Well, to sum up really short, it's 2 miles square. It's probably when I grew up there, it was probably 90% Italian. And everybody grew up the same exact way. For every holiday, everyone, went to a family's house, their own family's house. They had 45 people over. You didn't see them all day because they were in a food coma because your mother made 9 different items. And it was, my mother, everybody in my town, I think, is at some point, there's someone in the family, or more than one, named Anthony. So if my mother ever went outside and yelled Anthony, 10 kids would become running. So it was that's the kind of town it was. And it was, in the book I talk about, it was, very tight-knit, let's put it that way. Because when somebody from out of town was in town, everybody knew about it. So just to give you a little hint about what's some of the stories that are in the book.
You were not only an outstanding football player, but you were a pretty good wrestler as well. State champion, 97-1. Was there something about the sport of wrestling that kind of intrigued you a little bit, Tony?
Well, I sort of, I guess my mother and father used to tell me when I was a young kid I wanted to fight everybody. I always picked on the older kids. Like, I didn't back down from anybody. So they said, all right, you want to go? We're going to go and wear them out in this sport. And they threw me in, I had an older brother who was a wrestler, probably the best wrestler in my family, and a younger brother who was also a great wrestler, second in the state he took. So it was sort of, my parents wanted to wear me out, and I just kept going, and since I was like 5 years old, wrestled, and I think it's one of the greatest sports ever because, the game of football, you can always point to somebody else what they did wrong, but in wrestling, there's nobody else out there. So it's a sport where it's you against him, win or lose. It's pretty simple, and I think it builds a lot of character.
One of the stories that I enjoyed in the book, as you talked about your dad, was the time that you guys went to a bar, and it kind of surprised you what he said to you. Tell everybody what he said to you.
Well, it was I just turned 21, and my father's like, listen, take care of your brothers, and when you get older, it would be good to maybe invest or work as hard as you can and maybe invest in a restaurant because he always wanted a restaurant. We talked, and it was we were out actually buying my wife now's birthday present because I was dating my wife since junior year in high school. We broke up when I went to college. Now we're just getting back together. And we went out, we had our first drink, and then about 4 o'clock in the morning, I heard my mother screaming, and my father had a massive heart attack. And me and my older brother tried to go and keep him resuscitated, but that didn't really work out the way we wanted to. My dad passed away at 48 years old when I was 21, and it's sort of like in the book it talks about how the weight of not only my family, but the weight of everything all of a sudden went on my shoulders because me and my father had to talk the night before. And you're talking to, just talking to your dad, you think, you take it for granted that he's going to be there tomorrow, and had a really, almost a pie in the face saying, "Oh my God, man, now I got to do this all on my own." So it was quite an experience.
One of the other things that you say about that experience was it changed your life philosophically. You say, look, you
Absolutely.
Don't ever know when you're going to die. That's when my life really changed. What was it that changed explicitly, Tony?
I think, the biggest change that I had was, I didn't take, when you're 21 years old, you don't really think about anything. You forget about it. You think you're going to live forever. And I think that experience when changed my life, hey, listen, I'm going to live like nobody else has lived a life. When I it would be great, when I'm laying in my coffin that I look like hell. I mean, I want to be tore up. I want to have black and blues. They're going to say, man, that guy, he really lived. I do not want to be pretty, my hair combed, all nice. I told my wife this: I want an open bar next to me, play some good music, and do not cry because don't worry, I'm going to enjoy my life to the maximum. And I think that really changed my life and how I view things and how when people piss me off, I really don't have time for them. I sort of have a different outlook, almost like a guy, I guess, when I was 22, 23, like almost a guy who was 60 years old in that time of his life. I just, I wanted to go, and I think that I enjoyed every second that I'm awake since that day.
It's kind of interesting you say that. I always wondered what the fuel was in the belly of Tony Siragusa that fired him up to play football the way he did. I watched you over those 12 years, and there was a passion there that was different from other players. I mean, everybody plays this game with emotion, but there was something driving Tony Siragusa that was different.
I think part of that drive that we talk about, and I don't want everyone to think that this is just a book about football and talking about football. Sometimes football bores me. It's sort of how I pertain football to life, and I think that's very important. That's very important. There's a point, I didn't get drafted in 12 rounds back in 1990. I blew both my knees out in college. And I think, it started all probably when I was about 10 years old, and we had one of my Pop Warner coaches come up to me and said, "Listen, you should probably quit this sport because you're not any good. You'll never be any good, and you should probably find something else to do." And I thought, "Holy God, man! This guy he just told me what?" And it sort of pissed me off. And then I just didn't say two words because my father always told me, you take care of your own deal. You take care of your own situation. I'm not I'm the guy who just holds it in and I'll take care of this. And then when I went and I always remember that, and I went into high school, became a really good player, and then made it to the University of Pittsburgh on a full scholarship. And that coach flew out to the University of Pittsburgh and knocked on my door and said, "Hey, listen, I'm really sorry. I remember I told you that you'd never amount to anything. You proved me wrong." And I said, "Thanks, coach, whatever." And then when I went to from the University of Pittsburgh and didn't get drafted, and then everyone thought, "Oh, he's done, whatever." Little did they know, I went and did anything I possibly could to go and make it to the NFL. And the stories in the book are about that. And he flew out once again, Indy, and said he apologized again. And then once I won the Super Bowl, me and Brian came home. The next day, that same coach knocked on my door, and he says, "I don't know, I'm so happy that you stuck with it." And I said, "Coach, listen, you don't ever have to apologize to me. You don't ever have to go and say you're sorry. It's because of you that I'm here. I had to prove you wrong." And I think that people should learn from that, listen, just because somebody says something negative about you, there's no reason to go and flip out. Just put it in, tuck it away, and use that as fuel to go and prove him wrong. Because one day he's going to come back just like my coach came back to me and say, "Hey, man, I'm sorry, I was wrong." And that meant more to me than anything.
Yeah, I always sensed that you kind of played with a chip on your shoulder, that you were trying to prove other people that you were good enough to be doing what you were doing. So am I correct?
It was, and I wasn't like, and sometimes I took it to the extreme because, when I was young, I was a little bit of a wild man. And when I'd go into games, I would try to tackle somebody, and I'd always know where the head coach was or one of the coaches who didn't draft me. And I'd try to go, and I ran to the sideline. I wasn't running to go tackle a guy. I was running to go and take out one of the coaches, but I never got that opportunity. So I was a little upset about that.
After playing in Indianapolis, you do sign on as a free agent and move on, of course, to the Baltimore Ravens. And Brian Billick told me, I said to him, "Brian, tell me one of your favorite stories about Tony." He said, "When Tony came here, we didn't have any rules about bed check in training camp and everything. And Tony came to me, he was very mad because he could go out and he wasn't going to get caught breaking any rules."
Yep. Yeah, it was. I think the one thing Brian did that was genius on his part. Brian went and treated us like men. We had more fun than that you could ever imagine. But we could imagine it because we'd lived it. We'd go out there, and let me tell you something, during the stretching lines, we'd ask each other questions, and we'd bust Brian's chops, and, coach, stay over there, try to get us 3 points. We'd laugh back and forth, and we could do that amongst each other. But if anybody went and tried to do that who was outside our circle, you were in a load of trouble. And I think that, him going and preparing us, I don't think – there's one story about Brian I got to tell you. We're going, the year we won the Super Bowl, we had a lot of highs and lows. I actually held out that year, missed all the training camp. We came back, we played the Pittsburgh Steelers. I actually got paralyzed, okay? I hit the top of my head in a Tennessee game, probably the third or fourth game of the season. Didn't think I was going to come back. I wound up coming back in the game because I was so scared that I would never return. So there was a lot of highs and lows for everybody. And we got all the way to the end of the season. We were getting better and better and better. And we thought that we were pretty good, but we didn't know how good we were. And then we got to the playoffs, and Brian Billick, I'll never forget this, and I tell this story all the time, brought us into the team meeting, and he said, okay, this is our schedule for this week in the playoffs. And I looked up, and I said, oh, man, this is pretty cool. He's got it all planned out. And then he moved over a little bit, and he says, and this is for every other week all the way to when we play in the Super Bowl. And I was like, holy moly, this guy really believes that we're going to go. I'm going to the Super Bowl. He gave the team such confidence by preparing us, so we knew what was there to come, and it was for us to just go out and grab by preparing us that way. That I think he motivated us, secretly, his own special way, to making us just believe in ourselves, and that's when we really took off.
The 2000 Baltimore Ravens defense allowed the fewest points in NFL regular season history. What was the catalyst of that defense, Tony?
That defense was, I think, the most special defense ever. And people can go and say, well, the Bears, the Eagles, everyone's going to root for their team, and I encourage that. That's awesome. I like that. But I think if you look at us, we went 5 games without scoring a touchdown. I mean, we started out with Tony Banks as our quarterback, and, Brian made a change, and we went to Trent Dilfer. And you know what? We never said 2 words. Not one defensive guy ever said 2 words about, man, we got to score points or we got to do anything like that. We just kept our mouth shut, went out there, we played, and we said, listen, just get us 3 points. Just get us 3 points. That's all we need. And that's how we played. And I think we carried that from the beginning of the season all the way through when teams, we're up by 17, 21 points on people, and they have a big 0, and in the fourth quarter they kick a field goal. They were cheering like they just won the Super Bowl. So it was a great feeling to be on that team.
We only have 2 minutes left, but I want to ask you about a chapter that I kind of still am chuckling about: the art of cheating.
Well, you got to know the rules, and they might call it the art of cheating, but you just got to know, where you can have a little bit of an advantage. And I think, I explained in the book about, playing some of these teams and then, using the rules against you. And I just found out ways to use the rules for us on defense. Like when teams come to the line of scrimmage and it's 3rd and 1, and and they're count so much, and before the quarterback gets underneath you, they're going to go on first down, and you just have a similar cadence call as they would, but it's a defensive call. And you already go and tell the officials that, listen, we have a hot call, H-O-T. It's not hot, it's hot. And I'm going to be calling that, when we're ready to move. And, but I called it, and we caught a couple guys off sides and a couple 3rd and 1s turning into 3rd and 6s, and I think it was a little bit of an advantage. So I think there was an art. And I don't want to say cheating, but trying to take advantage of a situation.
Is there a particular memory in your career that really is ingrained in Tony Siragusa's mind that when he sits back in his own private moment brings a smile to his face?
One play?
And no, just any aspect of your life.
Any aspect of my life. Sometimes I just sit in my house and listen, I grew up with 2 pairs of corduroys and a couple Charlie's Angel shirts, and they sent you off to school, and I didn't have much money or anything like that. Sometimes I just got to sit back and I got to and I think, geez, man, I'm in this house. I own this house. Like, sometimes I got to pinch myself and say, man, I just, but the harder you work, I think our country does a really good job of going and promoting laziness. But and I hope that people go out there and they understand that the harder you work at whatever you do, the payoff is down there. Don't go the easy route. Sometimes you got to go the hard route, but the light is at the end of the tunnel. So I could pass that on to somebody.
Tony, I want to thank you very much. I appreciated your career. I urge people to check out this book. It's called Goose, The Outrageous Life and Times of a Football Guy. And I love the emotion that you played with, but also the emotion that you lived your life doing. So thanks a lot, Tony.
Thank you very much.
Tony Siragusa with us on Sports Byline, and he writes in his book, along the way, it has always been a blast, a lifelong run of living out my dreams and laughing along the way. I've met some great people in the process. I've also met some people who challenged me to be better. Whether those people were good or bad, I appreciate what they sparked in me. It has been absolutely unreal. We continue with more of you in Sports Byline.